So did you guys ever realize in March of '91 you could have won a trip to Dracula's hometown? Did anybody ever win? But anyway, most retro gamers would say that Castlevania 1 on the NES is their favorite in the series, and it is an incredible game. It's one of my favorites. It was one of the first games that I ever played on the NES when I was like 6 years old, and that game scared the hell out of me. My personal favorite is Castlevania III. It took everything amazing from the first one and the second one and rolled it up into this amazing masterpiece. But let's take a closer look at the art and design.
The opening visuals are fantastic. The game starts with a scrolling film reel with an old castle set in the mountains fading into view like some old horror movie. Then lightning strikes and bam! Castlevania III, Dracula's Curse. But have you ever taken the time to read the backstory? Old games are full of bad translations in English, but this came out in 1990. There was no excuse. A person named Dracula that practiced sorcery? What? A bad world filled with evil? Changing the people and countries from good to bad? Yeah, there weren't any bad people or countries in Europe ever, right? Blame Dracula for all that shit. So the Belmonts are badasses that save people time and time again from vampires. Sorcerers. But then the people of their home country start to fear them and kick them out? And then Trevor has to come back once things go sour again? Wow, what a bunch of selfish assholes.
So when I want to get something done, I use this Trevor.
Fucking shit! Cunt! 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 Who the fuck are you speaking to?
Anyway.
The design itself takes inspiration from both games before it, having a fleshed out world like in Simon's Quest and the linear stage design from the original. Personally, I enjoy the more straightforward linear level design than to the cryptic nonsense of Simon's Quest. I'm also not a fan of the Metroidvania style of gameplay, but that's a completely different story. Each level has a varied setting, but still feels consistent. The first stage, for example, has you traveling from an old castle to a church, and then to a broken down village, and then finally to an old cemetery. This layout would make sense that the village and church would be surrounded by the castle walls and the cemetery off to the side. The backgrounds have a unique quality that I can only describe as having a glitchy NES look. Yeah, you guys know exactly what I mean. But it's very fitting for the gothic atmosphere, and every surface in the game looks worn down and crumbling. Some of the animations were completely unique for an NES game at the time. For example, let's take a look at the background here from Stage 3. Just look at that scrolling. There's about 8 different textures, and the movement is more akin to something you'd see in a Genesis game. Also, have you ever noticed that the top display for Castlevania and Ninja Gaiden are practically identical? I guess Tecmo and Konami really like that layout. The branching paths of each level was a brilliant design move and easily ups the replay value, especially when you can play certain levels in reverse. Just take a look when Grant joins you. You have to play the clock tower from the top to bottom, and it feels like an entirely new level with Grant's wall climbing abilities. Speaking of the clock tower, just take a look at that background. Those animations are beautiful, especially with that large gear and those chains in the background. You can almost hear the metal rattling in the walls, and it feels like it's holding the entire level together. The use of color and shadow in the background creates so much more depth than in most NES games. The bricks in the background even have 2 different levels to them. The ones without the lighter pink highlights look set further back into the wall. Also, the windows in level 5 seem to be set back from the archways, just reinforcing that sense of depth. Each path on the main map follows a continuity, as the upper path goes across the lake directly to Dracula's castle, and the second takes you through caves and tunnels that lead to the base of the mountain below the castle. Color chosen for each level follows a triadic color scheme, meaning 3 colors were chosen to work together that are equally spaced out on the color wheel. Usually 2 out of the 3 appear per level. For example, the first part of level 5 has a purple and orange theme, and the next part has green and orange. Also, don't you find it strange that Nintendo didn't censor the hell out of this game with all the religious imagery? I mean, crosses are everywhere and they're huge. I mean, look at this, look at this. Right in the beginning of the game, you have a cross inside of a cross. Games like Devil World don't even make it to this country, but a well-known franchise like Castlevania gets a pass. Like all Konami games at the time, the character and enemy design is spot on. All playable characters' boss counterparts have this monstrous look to them, and they also carry a weapon that's similar. Such as Grant's monster is a distorted version of himself that throws daggers, and he uses a dagger. Sypha is trapped in a statue where you have to fight her monster form who uses a staff, and that's also the same weapon that Sypha uses. Alucard's monster form looks like his father with pale skin, and he changes into a group of bats, and also his special ability is that he can change into a bat. The design of the enemies perfectly fit the gothic and evil atmosphere. All the enemies that we've come to know and love are here again, like the skeletons, the knights, the bats, and the Medusa heads. But there's a slew of new enemies that are stylized to fit the new atmosphere, like the dead pirates on the ship, the demon skeletons in the haunted castle, and the mud creatures down in the swamp. Personally, my favorite enemies are the creatures made of fire that leave a trail of flames behind them. It's also really cool how the elements of the map change as you progress, like the ship in the ocean at level 4 and the map of Dracula's castle once you finally reach the end of the game. Now level 8, this has to be my favorite stage of the game. Even back then, the game developers at Konami knew how to appeal to our nostalgia. Hey, just listen to that music, and it's nice to see that only small touches like the statues in the background were changed. Anything else added felt like exploring a new part of an already familiar level. And, of course, the Grim Reaper has to show up again. It wouldn't be a Castlevania game without him showing up to be annoying. Luckily, if you have Sypha's 3-way special shot ability, it takes him down quickly, and it will also clear the air of those annoying sickles. But that couldn't be it, right? No, he needed a second form because the Grim Reaper wasn't hard enough. Again, he's not too tough with Sypha. However, just look how amazing that sprite is drawn. That light glowing inside makes him feel more eerie and alive. So finally, after 10 levels of punishment, you come face to face with the sorcerer vampire Dracula. His first form is a standard vampire design, and I really do like the purple outline and how well his cape and clothing are drawn. But then his second form, I don't even know where to start. It's like a floating 5-headed version of Grandpa from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre puking on you. Although this is completely disgusting, the design is really original. I can't think of any other video game boss that looks like this guy. It's a very cool touch also how each face becomes a skull when you defeat them. His third and final form is strange too, but nothing compared to the puking heads. My only criticism of this is it would have been nice if it was animated instead of just looking like a statue that's fading into the background. The ending shot is an absolute Castlevania classic, just watching Dracula's castle crumble as you watch from the cliffside. It's also really cool that the secondary character that came along with you for the journey is standing there alongside you.
So that's Castlevania 3. Play it if you haven't, play it again if you have. It's an absolute classic. Also a huge, huge shout out to World of Longplays on YouTube because there's absolutely no way that I would have been able to beat the game. So thank you so much for letting me use your footage. I'll put a link down below to check out their channel. They have hundreds of videos of them just beating the shit out of all of these really tough Nintendo games. So thanks so much for watching. A lot of new speed paintings, a lot of new reviews, and I'm going to try some new things this new year too. So see you guys soon.